During the main production of The Assurance, I had an interesting discussion with our gaffer about the lighting of the night scene. I wanted the light that was motivated by the moonlight to be even more blue. I wanted a more stylized, pretty look. But our gaffer wisely pointed out that this is not realistic. Moonlight isn't actually that blue, usually. So he insisted that we just leave the fill lighting in the night scene daylight balanced, and I just kind of went along with it. But then we had the whole thing that we talked about in the last training series where we had to stop shooting and then come back later a few weeks and reshoot this scene. Now in the time in between those, there's a few weeks, and I thought about Chris's opinion. It didn't really sit right with me for this project. I really wanted this extreme blue color in this scene. Now I realize that this is just a difference in preference. As gaffer, Chris was helping me avoid a big mistake. And his aesthetic preferences are to make things more true to life. And of course, that is completely respectable. In pondering this, I realized though that what I was looking for was not realistic. I wanted something stylized and larger than life. I wanted something that felt like a fantasy world. I love the colors in the night scene. They're garish and over the top, but I love them. I wanted the section where Tayani finally reveals herself and her powers to Cordelia to be powerful, to be memorable, to stick out from the rest of the movie. And I think that the colors really help that. I also think that the colors in other stylized parts of the film, like the goodbye scene, wouldn't have worked if there weren't exaggerated colors in the rest of the movie. So it kind of set a precedent for these big, larger-than-life stylized colors. Now this is actually a big decision for you to make. Are you going to make your film true and authentic, or are you going to make it artificial and stylized? There are great films and filmmakers in both camps. In this night scene in Mad Max Fury Road, for example, this moonlight is more blue than any night I've ever seen, but it's a stylized contrast to the warm desert tones of the rest of the film, which are also greatly exaggerated. But in this film, everything is larger than life. So the colors actually tell that same story, and it totally works. But in Spotlight, a very serious movie involving journalism and honesty, the colors at night feel completely authentic. There are no lights representing moonlight because moonlight isn't really all that strong. So the lighting here is as truthful and honest as the story hopes to be. So, an interesting philosophical discussion to be sure. And again here, there isn't an absolute right or wrong. This is an art form. As the director of photography, these are the kinds of issues that you'll need to think about and make decisions about. Just make sure that each decision that you make in conjunction with the director is intentional and coheres with the story as well as the other parts of the film. Next up, we'll look at some very helpful mobile apps for cinematographers.